What I want to discuss this week is a piece of equipment that is pretty standard in the guiding world, but hasn't really gained much traction in the recreational side of things, and that's an emergency toboggan. But before we get into the toboggan themselves, I want to talk a little bit about a concept known as a window of vulnerability, which is a time during which your normal layers of defense are either diminished or inadequate or absent. Let's imagine this scenario that you are touring with friends and you arrive to the slope that you wanted to ski. Now, the hazard is moderate on that day, and we are concerned that with warming in the afternoon and the sun hitting the slopes that the hazard may increase. Now you timed it just right and you arrived to your slope just before the sun actually hit it, and the snow is still fairly nice. And then to manage your hazard, there's three main ways or three main layers that you can use to manage your exposure to the hazard. The timing, which we just talked about, and you got that just right. And then the second thing is exposing one person at a time to the hazard so that you have a rescue backup. And then the third one is to limit the time that you were exposed to a hazard. So you're going to ski the slope, head to an island of safety, and then wait for the rest of your group. So now let's imagine that something happens during that descent. Doesn't need to be an avalanche, but somebody breaks a leg or blows a knee or something of that nature, and all of a sudden cannot bear weight. Is just sitting there. So all of a sudden, all of those layers of defenses are questionable. First off, it will be very difficult to expose one person at a time because the person is in the middle of the slope, and then you have to send somebody to help them. The other thing that's going to happen is you're going to spend a lot more time, probably altogether, in the line of fire. And then finally, your timing is also becoming problematic because as you're there waiting for rescue, then the sun continues its arc in the sky, and then that slope is starting to get warm, and that's exactly what you were worried about. So that's a window of vulnerability, and one thing that will really help you to get out of it is means to be able to get out of harm's way. In my personal experience, almost every single avalanche related or SAR call that I've responded to in avalanche terrain, the people were still sitting right there, exposed to the hazard, usually all bunched up as a group. And now that brings a problem for us, because in order for me as the avalanche technician to be comfortable sending the team in, I need to be okay with the level of exposure and the level of risk that we're taking. So the emergency toboggan, for anyone who's ever used one or tried to drag somebody over a long distance, you'll know that it's a tremendous amount of work. And if you're just a party of two or party of three, you're probably going to run out of steam before you get too long. So this might not be a tool to entirely self-evacuate and be fully self-reliant, but it is certainly a great tool to have to get out of harm's way, get to a better spot, get to a place where you can shelter in place and wait for help, a place where a helicopter can land, and that's where these things really shine. Some people suggest that just using a tarp would work, and that's probably true in a pinch, but as soon as the terrain becomes more challenging, you'll definitely need to be able to secure your patient a little bit better, and the tarp just won't really cut it. Another big challenge is side hilling. So this toboggan here has nice little side ropes to prevent the patient from sliding or worse, rolling towards the fall line as you're going across it. Having reliable handles also really helps, especially if you have to negotiate like difficult terrain. While it's not entirely essential, using a mattress would really help to make it more comfortable, especially navigating, refrozen skin track and avalanche debris in areas where the ground isn't super even. This is all I got for this week. I sincerely hope that next week we'll be able to talk about avalanches, but realistically, looking at the forecast, it's not looking so promising. So happy New Year, everybody. Stay safe, and we'll see you next week.